So, good evening, all. So, we'll be starting off with the GSM architecture today, called as a global system for the mobile communication as such. Now, this system or this architecture is very important from the point of the history of cellular and mobile communication. Because first, what we had was the AMP system, the Advanced Mobile Phone System, which was an analog cellular based system, and the system was quite good. It lasted for around 10 to 12 years before it was taken over by the GSM or the global system for the mobile communication as such. So this is how the logo of the GSM architecture typically look like. It is about the around a RSSI mark, received signal strength indicator. So vertical bars are there. That's one of the popular logos of the architecture as such. So when did it came? It came back around 1991. So we'll see a brief history of it also. So GSM or the Global System for Mobile Communication is a standard developed by the ETSI or the European Telecommunication Standard Institute. The GSM are used to describe the protocol for second generation digital cellular networks. Now this is the difference that comes between the AMP systems and the GSM system. AMP system were the 1G systems, the first generation cellular telephony systems, whereas GSM says a digital cellular networks and the second generation of the cellular telephony system or the CTS. They are all used by the mobile devices such as mobile phone, other tablets or the digital PCs as such. And it came around 30 years back, so around 1991, way back in the Finland. So let's look some of the characteristic feature of the GSM architecture. We're already familiar with the AMP system, so we should be able to quickly grasp it. Here also we'll have the two cellular bands, one the forward and the other is a reverse. So we'll have the two 25 megahertz cellular bands. The first one is from subscriber to base, what is called as a reverse link, and it is ranges from 90 megahertz to 915 megahertz. So 25 megahertz bandwidth is reserved for the subscriber to base reverse link transmission. Just like the AMP system, here also we'll have subscriber to base and then the base to subscriber. So here base to subscriber transmission is the forward link transmission, and the range is 935 megahertz to 960 megahertz. So 25 megahertz bandwidth in each of these categories, subscriber to base as well as base to subscriber, making it 50 megahertz bandwidth reserved for the GSM architecture. Now both the available forward and the reverse frequency bands, they will be further divided into some channels. What are these channels called as? We know them ARFCN, or called as absolute radio frequency channel number, and each channel will occupy a bandwidth of 200 kilohertz. That is what the GSM architecture says. We will have the channels called by the name ARFCN, and what is the width of the channel? Around 200 kilohertz wide channels, through which the signal will flow from the subscriber to base and vice versa. Now the ARFCN denotes a forward and reverse channel which is separated in frequency by 45 megahertz. Now we all know a certain amount of frequency gap have to be left between the channel, what we call as a guard band, otherwise we'll have a problem of the overlapping of the signal or the interference in the signal. So we need to leave certain amount of the frequency band between the channels. Now each channel is time shared between as many as 8 subscribers using a TDM. So in our last lecture, we have discussed about the time division multiple access technique. So the GSM architecture will use the TDMA technique, and each and every channel will time share between the 8 subscribers at any given point of the time. So what we'll do a polling where each and every subscriber will be given a certain fixed amount of the time slot. We'll discuss that what the time slot is in millisecond, 4.615 millisecond, and the participating devices has to transmit the data in that given time slot. Otherwise, it will lapse and it will move on to the next device. And each of the 8 subscribers uses the same ARFCN, whatever absolute radio frequency channel number, and occupies a unique time slot per frame. So we'll see a GSM frame where we have the 8 unit time slot, numbering from TS0 to TS7. Now the combination of both of them, the time slot number and the ARFCN number, constitute a physical channel for both the forward and the reverse link. So physical channel is actually just a logical name. So if somebody asks what is the physical channel, it's a combination of the time slot, which is a part of the GSM frame, plus the ARFCN, which is a channel through which the data will flow from the reverse transmission also the forward transmission as such. And what is the data rate speed? So radio transmission both the forward and the reverse link is at a speed of 270.833 kilobits per second. Now this might look very less or low in 2020, but when we take around 30 years back in 1991, when the GSM was launched the first time in Finland, this speed was good enough. But nowadays, yes, we look into terabits and very high bandwidth transmission. But in 1991, it's comparatively very good, 270.833 kilobits per second. Now let us look at the architecture. How does a GSM look like? This, for example, when we discuss the AMP system, we discuss about the hexagonal cell-shaped structure. What is a mobile station? Where is the mobile switching center? Where is the base station? So on the same lines, we'll have a GSM architecture as such, and this is one of the important architecture because as and when the exam will take place, maybe next month or in the month of June, so we can always believe one or two questions are definitely going to come on this GSM architecture. So what does the architecture look like? What are the main components of it? So let us see one by one. On the right hand side, we'll have the external networks to the GSM. So it could be one of them is PSTN, what we call public switched telephone network. It could be the ISDN, integrated services digital network, or it could be any other digital network for that matter. So just any other beside these two could be any other digital network. And these are all together collectively called as the public networks, which are outside the GSM periphery. Now, if you start with the GSM first of all will have something called servers, and these servers will have the MSC or the mobile switching center or the MTSO. So we have seen in the case of the AMP system, we'll have the mobile switching center or the MSCs, and these MSCs are connected to the base stations. So on the same lines here also we'll have the base stations. But here base station will be classified into two categories. We'll have the BTS and the BSCs. So first thing, we'll have a server here in place. Server will have a very important component, what we call as the MSC or the mobile switching center. We also called as a MTSO, mobile telephone switching office. So it can be known by any of these two names. Now what this will be connected to, it will be connected to the PSTN, to the ISDN, or to the digital network as such. So all the three external networks will be connected to the mobile switching centers or the MTSO. Now within the server, the MSC will be connected to the HLR, the VLR, and the AUC authentication center. Now these are the three important components of the GSM server. One is called as the home location register or HLR. Second is called as the VLR or the visitor location register. And the third one is called the AUC or the authentication center. And all of them need to work successfully fine to ensure the efficiency of the GSM architecture as such. Now all of them will be connected to the MSC. So VLR connected to the mobile switching center, same way HLR and the AUC all connected to the mobile switching center as such. Now besides this, we'll have also something called operation maintenance center, which is a part of the GSM server. So our mobile switching center will also be connected to the OMC or the operation maintenance center. So when we talk of the GSM frame or the GSM architecture, now moving on the left hand side, now we'll have the different components because ultimately user will have to come into picture. Now what will the user be connected to? User will be connected to the BTS or what we call base transceiver stations, which will further be connected to the BSC, base switching centers. And on the left hand side, we will have the mobile station or the MSC, which we are actually carrying, the hand phones, the smartphones, the tablets, the PCs, and all other components which can have a SIM, through which we can talk to the other person within the same network or across the network. So any other digital telephone, any other which is cellular based, which has a SIM card through which the connection can be established. So we can have the more base transceiver station, the BTS and the BTS, and the base switching station center, BSC as such. They will all be connected to the mobile station. So that's how typically the hierarchy goes. Now if you look at the connections, so BTS will be connected to the BSCs, the BSC will be connected to the mobile switching center, which is present in the server of the GSM network. The BTS will monitor or manage the mobile station. A mobile station can be stationary or it can be dynamic. For example, when I'm just sitting at a home, my smartphone is stationary, it is not moving around, so it is a stationary mobile station. Or if the person is driving a car on a highway or expressway, so he's driving, so that mobile station becomes a dynamic entity. So BTS will keep on monitoring and will keep on managing the mobile stations. So again, more links that shows that BTS is being monitored by the BSC. Same way, mobile station being managed by the BTS. All of them are connected to each other. Now, if you look in this diagram and if you compare to the AMP system, in the AMPs when the handoff used to take place, it was all monitored and managed by the mobile switching center or the MSC. So there was a lot of overload or overhead on the mobile switching center. But in the case of the GSM, it is a BTS and the BSC combination that will handle the handoff mechanism. So as and when the mobile station moves from outside the jurisdiction of one BTS to another BTS, it will be monitored by the base station network or the base switching centers or the BSCs as well. So base switching center on behalf of the mobile switching center will handle the handoff mechanism as well. So we do not need to disturb the mobile switching center every now and then. The BSCs itself are good enough and capable enough to manage and monitor all the handoff mechanisms as such. So this drastically reduces the overhead on the mobile switching centers as such. So right at the bottom we can see the entire things are further called a network switching subsystem or NSS for the GSM servers, and we call the base station subsystem or the BSS managing the mobile station, the BTS and the BSCs. So this entire diagram is very important from the GSM working point of view. Okay, how does a mobile station communicate with the external networks? So mobile station to the BTS, to the BSCs, to the MSCs, and then MSC backforth to the PSTN or ISDN or the digital network as such. Now, the important point in the working of the GSM is the efficiency of the HLR, VLR, and the AUC. What are they meant for, or what is their purpose as such? So we'll see all of them one by one. First thing, let's see, starting the components, we have got the base station subsystems and the network switching subsystem. Now, what will the base station subsystem do? It will provides and manages the radio transmission between the mobile stations and the mobile switching center. So the combination of the MS, the BTS, and the BSC, it all combines together to be a part of the base station systems as such. The second part is the network and switching subsystem, what we call NSS. It manages the switching function of the system. So this is GSM system, Global System for Mobile Communication, and allows the mobile switching center to communicate with other external networks such as the ISDN and the PSTN network as such. So we can see for the efficiency management, so our GSM network will have the BSS, the NSS, and plus any of the other external networks to which the user wants to talk or communicate to. Now, what will the NSS or network switching subsystem comprise of? It will have the three parts which we just saw. That we'll have a GSM server, and within the server we'll have the HLR, VLR, and the AUC. Now, HLR is called as a home location register. Now, it will always store subscriber personal information. So, whenever, let's say, if I buy a new SIM card and place it into my mobile phone, so what will it help me to connect to my immediate service provider? So my information about my IMSI number, the IMEI number, International Mobile Subscriber Identity Number, IMSI, and International Mobile Equipment Identity Number, or the IMEI, will go to the service provider, and service provider will register me that this is the circle, this is the zone of which I am a subscriber of. So that becomes my home base station. For example, if I'm registering in Delhi, Delhi becomes my home base station. If I'm facing Ghaziabad, Ghaziabad becomes my home base station. So HLR will store all the information about the subscriber whose base station is that particular zone or location. So subscriber personal information, subscriber location information, a lat and long coordinate, the latitude and the longitude coordinate where exactly you are based will all be stored into the home location register. Then we'll have the VLR, the visitor location register. This is primarily useful when a person is on the roaming. For example, if I travel down from Delhi to Chandigarh or Delhi to Lucknow or Delhi to Calcutta, so when I move out from my home station and landed into another home base and to another station or to another zone altogether, we will maintain a register called visitor location register. So this is a new subscriber that has actually landed in. So at my date of arrival, date of departure, at what till what time I stayed in that zone, to how many person I talked to, how many SMSs I received, how SMS I sent, what is the duration of the call, everything will be monitored and managed and stored into a VLR of that service provider as such. And when I exit off, immediately all the information will be conveyed to my home base station as such, so that I will be metered accordingly. I may have a prepaid connection or the postpaid connection. So accordingly, the billing will be done and I will be receiving the bills. So VLR actually maintains all the information about the visitors who are on the roaming within the GSM network. It's a very important register because it keeps a track of your movement as and when you are moving from which zone to which zone, how many number of zones you are crossing. Maybe you are spanning those multiple cities and then finally after a month you come back. So multiple number of VLRs will keep on storing the information as such. Now this is something which was not there in the AMP system. So if you compare with the GSM working with the AMP system, it was marginally, or rather not only marginally, far better because it took into account the roaming. And the AMP system is completely silent on the roaming. What if the user moves from one city to another city? How they will manage it? So AMP system was advanced mobile phone system, which you have discussed in our class and the lecture. That does not talk about the roaming. Yes, it indeed talks about the handoff, but it does not talk about the roaming feature as such. Now, another important component is AUC or the Authentication Center. Now, this center is very important in handling my calls, the subscribers' calls as such. So, whenever my data is being transmitted from my mobile station to the BTS and the BSC, it should be in the encrypted format because then otherwise anybody can decipher and decode my signal or the data. So, I need to encrypt it and then transmit it. Same way, when I'm going to receive it, it should come in the encrypted format. So somewhere data need to be secured. So even in the 1991-92 when the GSM came for the very first time, the cellular network service provider realized the importance of the security of the data asset. So the privacy should be maintained. Whatever I say, whatever I speak, should not be listened to the outside world. And my call should be safeguarded from the traditional hackers. So all this is a center which will handle all the authentication and the encryption keys. And encryption key is something like a dynamic. You can't keep one set of encryption key forever because it might get stolen. The hacker might come to know about it. So GSM service providers have to be dynamic that every now and then they keep on upgrading or changing their encryption keys so the security and privacy of the data is maintained. It also contains a register called EIR, called the Equipment Identity Register. It contains the IMEI information of the stolen phone. We all have some point of time our phones might have got stolen in metros or maybe in our colleges or in offices. So what is the first thing we normally do? We reach to a service provider. They say first of all you go and file a complaint at the police station. So what we normally do, we write an application, go to the police station. They will never register a FIR, but yes, they will put a stamp. Yes, you came to the police station and then you lodged a complaint. So on your application, they will put a stamp giving authenticity mark. Then we take their application along with our proof of IDs and go to the service centers or the customer service desk of the service provider and request them that a new SIM may be allotted to us for the wearing the same IMSI number. So they will do that, but at the same point, they also have the information that what was my handphone, which company, which made it was handphone was. They might ask, they might not ask. Even if they might not ask it, then also they are having the information, the service provider, because when I was registered my phone for the very first time, the IMSI and the IMEI information had already been gone to the service provider and they already stored it. but still they will ask it, was my phone authenticated or whether it was registered or not. So if I am having a proof that this is my real bill from which shop I have purchased it, and I'm having original bill, I can show it that this is my phone, this is having IMEI number, and the phone was a valid one, not a pirated one as well. So they will note down all the information and store it into the register called the EIR register, which contains the information, all the IMEI information of the stolen phone. Now, these service provider can share the EIR amongst themselves. If the TRAI wants, the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, it can make it compulsory that all these EIR registers should be shared among the service provider. Now, once it allows to do it, it will make sure that no more phones get stolen. Because all these phones which are stolen and the complainant makes a complaint about it, immediately EIR information will be there, and the service provider can debar the phone calling from those particular phones, which for which the complaint has been received from the genuine subscriber. But as of now, it is not happening. The phones are getting stolen, and still the phones can further be reused by changing the SIM cards as well. But yes, technologically wise, the registers are there. The architecture says that the service provider can debar and completely lock down the smartphones which have been reported as stolen by the genuine subscriber. So all the three components are very important for the working of the GSM architecture. Again, if we compare it with the AMP system, we did not have any registers there. So no HLR, no VLR, and nothing talking of the encryption. Now let's look at some of the technical specification of the GSM architecture. So first thing, the first 2 points we have already discussed, the forward and the reverse channel frequencies. We've got 25 megahertz bandwidth reserved both for forward as well as the reverse. So for the forward, it's 25 megahertz ranging from 950 to 960 megahertz, and then 892, it should be 935. It has been roughly written as 950, 935 to 960 megahertz. And for the reverse channel, it is 890 to 915 megahertz. Then we have got a ARFC and absolute radio frequency channel numbers, which ranges from 0 to 124 and 975 to 10p. They have been reserved for the GSM. Then we have the transmission and the receiving frequency spacing. It's for 45 megahertz, which we have already seen. And then we leave certain amount of time slots. So time slot spacing with 3 time slots because it uses the TDMA or the time division multiple access technique. Our modulation data rate in the GSM is 270.833 kilobits per second. We'll do certain numericals based on it, how to use this data transmission speed for the transmission of the GSM frame. Then we'll have a frame, what we call GSM frame, and it will have multiple number of time slots. And what is the total time which is required to complete the one complete frame? It is 4.615 milliseconds. You should just see right down the line. Then what is the total number of slots of that particular frame, the GSM frame? There are 8. So TS0 to TS7, time slot 0 to time slot 7. Then what is the time slot period per slot in that frame? It is 576.9 microseconds. What is the bit period? 3.692 microseconds. And the ARFC is channel spacing around 200 kilohertz wide channel. So we don't need to remember or rectify all of them, but yes, we need to remember the important one. Like point number 1 to 5 are important, which we need to keep in mind while solving the numericals. Yes, most of the readings will be given in the question so that you can see and use them for solving the numericals. Now let's look at the GSM frame. This is how typically the frame looks like. So it's one of the sample frames. It will have a 8 time slot. So time slot 0 to time slot 7. And it takes around 4.615 milliseconds to complete one particular frame, having this much number of the time slot. Now, how many number of bits which each and every time slot will carry? So that comes around 156.25 bits. So each time slot will have 3 start bits, 3 stop bits, 8.25 guard bits for making sure that no interference or overlapping take place, 26 are the trailing bits, and 106, that is 2 into 58, is reserved for the user data. Whatever we transmit, whatever we speak, voice, audio, video, everything will be transmitted to the 106 bits of the data, making it together 156.25 bits. So if you look at this organization of the frames, which is evident on our screen, so many amount of the time it will take it's for one time slot is 576.92 microseconds. What does that mean? Given the time division multiple access TDMA will work, the TDMA will give around 576.92 microsecond for each of the digital devices to give their data to the PDMA access. So window will be open for only for this much amount of the time. So if you remember the last week lecture, we discussed the TDMA, FDMA and CDMA, and the TDMA slot is open for a specified duration of the time. So what is that time? 576.92 microseconds. So device will transmit the data only in that much amount of the time. The time slot over, it moves to the next device as such. And maximum amount of the data which every time slot carries is 156.25 bits. That is also shown down the slide how that 156.25 actually comes. But that is the maximum amount of the data that can be accommodated in one single time slot as such. So if you want to calculate what is the size of the frame, how many number of bits it is carrying. So it is 156.25 multiplied by 8. That will give me the maximum number of the bits which is going to be adjusted within that particular frame. So 156.25. Now let us look at the channel status for the GSM architecture. The total number of available channels within 25 megahertz bandwidth is 125, assuming that there are no guard bands. So we can see that each and every radio channel consists of 8 time slots, which we have just seen in the previous slide, and there are 1000 traffic channels within the GSM. Because if you look at the number of available channels with 25 megahertz bandwidth 125. So 125 cross 8 will get us 1000 traffic. 125 multiplied with the 8 will give us around 1000 traffic channels within the GSM architecture. Now GSM also has something called as a multi-frame. So what is that multi-frame? If we have a frame that consists of 26 time slots, because in the previous slide we saw a frame which was having only 8 time slots, so that is a single GSM frame. But if there is a need or a requirement of a larger frame, we call that frame as a multi-frame that will have around 26 time slots. So TS0 to TS24. And the last one is the ideal slot that is left to differentiate from one frame from another frame as such. And the total amount of time it takes to create one multi-frame is 120 milliseconds as compared to a single frame which was 4.615 millisecond as such. So again, the service provider as well as the mobile station need to be very clear that the data transmission will take place within a multi-frame network or within a single frame. So single frame 8 time slot 4.615 millisecond, and every slot will have 156.25 bits. But in multi-frame, we have 26 time slot with the last slot left as blank. Just like in what we discussed in our last lecture, where we have got the FDMA and the TDMA, and even with the time division time division multiplexing, we used to have a framing bits where one frame in the end of the frame we have the synchronization pattern as 1 0 1 0 1 0. So every trailer bit will having a 1, next frame will have a 0, again alternate frame will have 1 and 0 for that. Same way here we leave one slot as a vacant slot just to differentiate that this is the ending of this frame and the starting of the next frame as such. Now let's see some small numericals of the GSM architecture. Consider a GSM system which is a TDMA or FDD, this time division multiple access. of frequency division duplexing. That uses the 25 MHz for the forward link, and which is further broken down into radio channels of 200 kilohertz as well. So these radio channels we call them as ARFC, Absolute Radio Frequency Channel Number. Now, 8 speed channels are supported on a single radio channel, and if no guardband is assumed, find the number of simultaneous users that can be accommodated within the GSM network as well. So the data which has been given is 25 megahertz, and the radio channel bandwidth is given 200 kilohertz, and we need to use 8 speed channel. So when we try to find out the total number of the users in the numerical, so numerator we will take 25 megahertz and the denominator 200 kilohertz divided by 8. So that will give us the total number of simultaneous users that can be accommodated in the GSM. So that is how it will go. The total number of simultaneous users that can be accommodated in GSM is 25 megahertz and then 200 kilohertz divided by 8. So 200 is the ARFCN channel bandwidth, and 8 they have already given the maximum number of subscribers that can be accommodated in a single frame. So that gives a value of N as 1000. That means the GSM network can accommodate 1000 simultaneous users at any given point of the time. So depending on the numerical which is given to us, let us read through it and try to find out what has been given to us and what the question asks from us. So accordingly, it should be easy to compute or easy to solve the numerical. Let's take another small numerical. It says if the GSM uses a frame structure where each frame consists of 8 time slots and each time slot contains 156.25 bits. We have already seen the GSM frame, so they're describing the same frame. If there is a frame that consists 8 time slot number from TS0 to TS7, and each time slot contains 156.25 bits of the data, and the data is being transmitted at a speed of 270.833 kilobits per second, because that is the maximum data transmission speed possible in the GSM network. Now we need to find out 2-3 things. Find the time duration of a bit, time duration of a slot, time duration of a frame, and how long must a user occupy a single time slot wait between the 2 successive transmissions. So how long the user has to wait between occupying a single time slot between the 2 successive transmissions. So first thing that we need to find out is the time duration of the bit. So how we'll see it, let's see. The time duration of the bit will have 1 divided by data transmission speed. So in the numerator 1 we go, and denominator they have already given data transmission speed as 270.833 kilobits per second. So that gives us the answer 3.692 microseconds. That is the time duration of a bit within a GSM frame. Another thing we inquired in the question, what is the time duration of a slot? So how do we calculate it? It's very simple. We just multiply 156.25 with the value of the time slot. That gives us 0.577 millisecond as such. Then they also ask about the time duration of the frame. So it is 8 times the TS, because the frame will have 8 time slots. So 8 multiplied by TS, that gives us 4.615 millisecond as such. Then a user has to wait how much amount of the time? User will have to wait around 4.615, because time duration of single frame is 4.615 millisecond as such. So that is the minimum amount of time the user has to wait between the arrival of the next frame and successful transmission of the previous frame as such. Now let's take another small numerical. These numericals are already given in the Rappaport book. I will tell you the page number, and then accordingly, if you want to go more into the 3D part of it or how to understand more about it, you can go through that particular page number. I will show the page number also, and which can GSM with the numericals out there. It's 458 already written in the footer part of it. So a normal GSM has 3 start bits, 3 stop bits, which are also called as a trailing bits, 26 trailing bits for along adaptive equalization, 8.25 guard bits, and 2 bursts of 58 bits of elevated data, all being transmitted at 270.833 kilobits per second in the channel. So this is the complete organization of the GSM frame. So numerical itself is very good. It tells everything how the GSM frame is being organized. Now what we need to find out is the number of overhead bits per frame, the total number of bits per frame, the frame rate, the time duration of a slot, and the efficiency of the particular frame which is being getting rated. So first that we need to find out is the number of overhead bits per frame. How do we compute the number of overhead bits per frame? We need to first calculate the time slot bits, which we already know. 3 are the start bit, 3 are the stop bits, 8.25 is a guard bit, 26 are the trailing bits, and 2 into 58 are the encrypted data bits. So we add all them together, we get 156.25 bits of the data. Now if you want to calculate number of overhead bits per frame, so it says 8 into 6 plus 8 into 8.25 plus 8 into 26. That gives us the number of the bits as 322, where 8 is the number of the slots per frame we normally have. If I want to calculate total number of the bits per frame, so we say total number of time slots in a frame multiplied by number of bits per time slot. So it's 8 into 156.25, which we get as 1250 bits per frame. And if I want to calculate the frame rate, is again simple, 270.833 kilobits per second data transmission speed divided by 1250 bits per frame, which is actually total number of bits per frame, and that gives us a frame rate as to 216.66 frames per second. We just need to remember these formulas, that how do we calculate the value. So if you look at the frame rate, the numerator is data transmission speed for the GSM, which is 270.833 kilobits per second. And then in the denominator, the value is total number of bits per frame, which we just computed in the previous slide. That is 1250 bits per frame. So we need to just remember these formulas so that we can place the values and derive the answers. Now, if you want to calculate time duration of a slot, so we say total number of bits in the time slot, which is 156.25, multiplied with the 1 upon data transmission speed. So 1 upon 270.833 kilobits per second. So 156.25 into 1 upon 270.833 kilobits per second. That gives us the answer as 576.92 microseconds. That is the time duration of a slot. And if you want to calculate the frame efficiencies, again we need to remember the formula 1 minus the numerator will have number of overhead bits, and the denominator will have number of bits per frame. Now we calculated the overhead bits in the previous point. Here in the point number 2, which is 322 bits, we have already calculated here. So we place here, and the number of bits per frame also we calculated, which is 1250 bits per frame. That comes in the denominator. So it gives us an efficiency of 74.24% for the transmission of the frame from subscriber to base as well as from base to subscriber as such. So we need to remember these formulas, what has to be divided by what, so that we can easily compute all these things, number of overhead bits per frame, number of bits per frame. First thing, we need to have clear and cut understanding of what the GSM frame look like. So when we have moved for, if you look at this frame, this is the important frame. We need to have a clear understanding. This is how the typical frame look like. I will have a GSM frame with a multiple number of slots inside it. Each and every slot is being time shared between the subscriber. Maximum of 8 subscribers can, the maximum amount of the data which can be received from 8 subscribers can be arranged in a single time slot. So we have 8 time slots. So every slot will carry the data from 8 subscribers in a time division multiple access method. Then what will this time slot carry? They will carry certain amount of bits. So what is that bit? 156.25 bits. So what is the breakup of it? 3 start bits, 3 stop bits, 8.25 guard bits, then 26 are the trailing bits, and the actual data will be 2 into 58. That is user data. That makes it 156.25 bits. So every slot will carry 156.25 bits. Now, what is the total amount of the time required to create one frame is 4.615 amount of the millisecond. And in what amount of time one single slot gets ready? 576.92 microseconds. So if you remember this basic architecture of the frame, what it looked like, what is the maximum amount of data every slot can carry, how much is the total amount of time required to complete one frame, will be easily able to do the numericals. So this thing has to remain there in our mind. We have understanding of the GSM frames and the GSM networks. Now, after this handful of numericals, we will move to the channels. what are the channels which is being offered by the GSM network as such. So GSM network offers the two kind of the channels, what we call the traffic channel and the control channels as such, because every network offers these two things only. So this will also offer two things, the traffic channel and the control channel. Now what will the traffic channel do? They will carry our data, subscriber data. So traffic channel carry the digitally encoded user speech or the user data both on the forward and the reverse link as such. And what will the control channel do? Control channels, as we already know, it's a channel which is being managed and which is being used by the network service provider for their own purpose. For establishing a call, for disconnecting a call, for channel management, for call management, billing, managing networks. So everything is being done before and after the call is there as such. So for the management of the network, we require a good number of the control channels. So we'll have three broad categories of the channel, which we'll see just down the line. But why they are used for? They are used for carrying, signaling, and synchronizing command between the base station and the mobile station. That is what the purpose of using the control channels is. They are further classified to three broad categories, which is here the broadcast channel, the common control channel, and the dedicated control channel. So these are three broad categories of the GSM control channel: the broadcast, the common control, and the dedicated control channel. A broadcast channel will have further three categories inside it, what we call broadcast control channel, frequency correction channel, and the synchronization channel. Now each channel has a defined purpose and task, and its functionality is also crystal clearly defined. That why it is there and what its job to do in the GSM network. Same way, common control channel has the paging channel, the random access channel, and the access grant channel. Same way, we move further, dedicated control channel, we have the standalone dedicated control channel, the slow associated dedicated control channel, and the fast associated dedicated control channel. So overall, we have the 9 control channels plus 1 is a traffic channel. So overall 10 main channels will be there in the GSM network as such. 1 is a traffic channel and 9 are the GSM control channel, divided into a category of 3 each, the broadcast, the common, and the dedicated as such. So we'll further move into each of these channel one by one and try to see what it is purpose, why it is placed in the GSM network, and what it is brief functionalities. If you look into the GSM network literature, a huge paragraphs is written for every channel as such. But from our knowledge point of view or from the understanding point of view, a small amount of the information is good enough that what these channels are being defined to do. So let's take the first one as such, the broadcast channel. So we have seen the function, we'll see the functionality of what it does. So broadcast control channel, it is the forward control channel. It is used to broadcast the information. What information? The cell and the network identity and the operating characteristic of a cell. So broadcast control channel is being defined to do these two things. Then we have the frequency correction channel. So what will FCCH do? It is a special data burst which occupies the time slot 0 for the very first GSM frame. So we know GSM frame carries the 8 time slot. The multi-frame carries the 26 time slot. The normal GSM frame carries the 8 time slot. Now in the time slot 0, we'll have the reserved for the frequency correction channel. And as the name itself tells, it allows the mobile station, our handset units, to synchronize the internal frequency standard to exact frequency of the base station. So it's more like a tuning purpose, both for our mobile station as well as the base station. And the last channel is a part of the broadcast channel, is a synchronization channel. It's a broadcasting time slot 0 of the frame immediately following the frequency correction channel, and is used to identify that which is our home station, which is used to identify the serving base station, while also allowing each mobile station to frame synchronize with the base station. Now this synchronization is important both in my home station as well as I'm roaming from one cell to another cell to the third cell and the fourth cell. So synchronization channel will help us to achieve proper synchronization between the base station subsystem, what we call BTS in the BSC, and the mobile stations. When we come to the second category, now these are all the categories which are a part of this channel. First was a broadcast channel. This was a broadcast channel. So we have discussed about these three channels very briefly: broadcast control, frequency correction, and the synchronization. Now come to the second category, what we called as a common control channel. So we'll see a line or two with sentence or two about the paging channel, the random access channel, and the access ground channel as such. So whatever paging channel will do, it will provide paging signal from the base station to all the mobiles in the cell, and it also notifies a specific mobile of the incoming call if it is coming from the PSTN network, public switch telephone network. So we have in the AMP system also we discussed two kind of the channel, the paging and the seeking. So paging is done when the information is from top to bottom, that is from the mobile switching center to the base station subsystem and then to the mobile station. So that is what the paging is done. When I want to initiate a call as a subscriber, I will also do always do a seeking purpose. So I require a seeking channel as such. But here it is all the purpose of the paging that my particular BTS or the BSC is searching for me where I am. So paging channel will be used for this purpose. Now for the seeking, we'll use a random access channel. So RACH is a reverse link channel used by the mobile station to acknowledge a page from the paging channel as such. So it is to serve more as a purpose of acknowledgement. That is, if it has been found, the mobile station will reply back, yes, you have been able to trace me and this is where I am. So this is my IMSI number, this is my IMEI number as such. The third category is what we called as a access grant channel or the AGCH. Now, AGCH is used by the mobile base station to provide a forward link communication to the mobile station. I need to stop. Don't use it. Do not try to use the razor pen. The AGCH is used by the base station to provide a forward link communication to the mobile station and carries data which instructs the mobile station to operate in a particular physical channel. Now, physical channel we have discussed earlier also in the GSM. It's a combination of what time slot of the frame plus the ARFCM, the absolute radio frequency channel number. So combine the two, what we got is a physical channel. So what is the bandwidth reserved for the ARFCM? 200 kilohertz wide channels, the ARFCM, and they will be merged together with the time slot to get a single physical channel for the GSM network as such. Let's look at the last one, what we call as a dedicated control channel or the DCCH. It comprises three main channels. We have got the standalone dedicated control channel. So what we are actually talking of now is this one, the last category, the dedicated control channel, which will have the three broad categories: standalone, dedicated, slow associated, and fast associated. So standalone will allow the signaling data flow from connection of the mobile station within the base station and just before TSH or the traffic channel assignment is issued by the base station. So as we have discussed in the AMP system, first of all, the channel establishment will be done. The control channel will come into the active state. They will make sure subscriber is ready, so is a source, so is a destination, and the entire network is ready to handle the call. Then the call handoff will be done. It will be switched off, given to the traffic channel as well. So here also, once the control channel will do their job successfully, then the traffic channel assignment will be done for the standalone dedicated control channels. Then slow associated dedicated control channel, simple one, they just carry the general information between the mobile station and the BTS. So no specific purpose has been reserved for this. Slow associated has been reserved that whenever the two of them want to communicate, mobile station and the base station subsystem. So we are not talking about the mobile station as the MSCs. We're talking of the MS and the BTS. So whenever the base receiver systems or the mobile station wish to communicate with each other, they can use the slow associated dedicated common control channels. So mobile switching center will not come into picture at this point of time. Then we have the last one, what we call fast associated dedicated control channels. They carry the urgent messages and contain essentially same type of information as the standalone dedicated common control channel as such, and they are assigned whenever standalone dedicated common control channels has not been dedicated for a particular purpose as such for the particular user, and there's an urgent message such as the handoff request. So for efficient handling of the handoff request, we'll go and deal with the fast associated dedicated control channel. But the good thing about the GSM network is that we don't need to disturb the mobile switching center for handling the handoff mechanism. our base station network, the BTS and the BSC, they are capable enough to handle it on their own without disturbing the mobile switching centers. They will just send us a notification to the mobile switching center. Rest they will join, or rest they will handle all these incoming and outgoing calls together with a handoff mechanism on their own. So with the help of the standalone dedicated control channel, slow associated and fast associated. Now, out of these three, the first and the third one are important: the standalone and the fast associated. There was in the literature, the GSM network does not give any meaningful purpose for the slow associated common control channel. They are just used to carry general information between the mobile station and the BTS. Whereas for the handoff, we'll always use the fast associated, and for carrying out any kind of communication within the mobile station and the base station, and for the traffic channel assignment, we'll use a standalone dedicated control channel. So these are the three important channels which we always use in the case of the GSM network as such. So that is all about the GSM network. So make sure we go through it. Maybe through the net or Rappaport book is good enough because it talks in detail about the GSM network. So we can go through it. We'll have a good understanding about the GSM part as such. So now, any questions? So we'll take the questions. Any doubt? Anything not clear in it? Anything we need to ask?
No, sir.
So I hope it is clear and understandable. So we can go to the GSM theory as well as GSM numericals. In the Rappaport book, page number 457, numericals are there. So that there are good numericals, small numericals are there, but that is